Hello, everyone. I'm bringing the market breath. I am Dr. Duru from Ahan Analytics. All right, I'm going to jump right into the charts because there was a lot of drama in the market today because of this DeepSeek phenomenon. And the AI and AI adjacent space got laid to waste. I'm going to focus on those charts, and it's fascinating because it helped me to find out some other stocks to add to my AI list that people associate with the AI mania. So let's get to it. All right. The first thing I want to note is that the stock market overall in the aggregate is actually just fine. I mean, in terms of the day's action, this is market breadth, my favorite technical indicator, the percent of stocks trading above their 50-day moving average. And as you can see, it essentially ended the day flat. It was a little volatile, but it ended the day flat. And that tells me that the carnage in the stock market from the DeepSeek news was fairly targeted. And just to confirm, in case, market breadth is going to make us think that all is well, we can just check out the VIX and see that, yes, indeed, volatility did spike. It faded sharply from the intraday high, which we would expect on a day that's overall not that bad. And it ended up 20.6%. Now, I faded the VIX as I want to do on extreme days and extreme moves. And I used this ETN called VXX, and I'm expecting it to eventually get to 40 after the dust settles from the latest panic. Another way to see that everything was okay in the aggregate is that on Swing Trade Bot, which I always remind everyone, I love this platform and I am a subscriber, so some of the features I click through may not be available for free. But if I scroll all the way down here, there's this great heat map that shows in color the different price changes. So a heat map, basically, the more red it is, the more negative a stock, and the more green, the more positive the stock. And what you can see here is, yeah, there's some red spots, but they're relatively just in big stocks. And overall, looks like a fairly normal day. If I get rid of the -3% moves, you can see even more green. And then if I get rid of the 2% moves, again, the vast majority of the market was doing okay. So anyway, that's the heat map. Now let's go to actually, a good way of checking this out is to see my Seeking Alpha portfolio list. Give me a second to get over there. I keep now a list of portfolios in the left-hand side. And again, I'm an author for Seeking Alpha, so some of the things I click through here may not be available for free users. And sorry for the slow moving here. And you can see my AI list now. Oh, yes, he redesigned. Great. Was down a monstrous 12.1%. This is not weighted. I think it's just it's an non-weighted portfolio percentage move. And what I've done is I've now expanded my list greatly because I identified what were the biggest movers, and I checked out most of them in terms of just confirming their not job descriptions, their stock descriptions to make sure that they had something to do with AI. So what has something to do with AI? Make chips. Make equipment to support chip makers, make software to support chip makers. Maybe it's energy for data centers, or maybe it's providing equipment and peripherals um, for data centers. And actually, as I'm saying that, I'm realizing I did not add Dell to this list. So let me add Dell. I don't even know what happened to Dell today, but we shall see soon. Okay, so I've added Dell to the list. Now I want to sort this by, not by holdings, but sorry, by percentage change. And you can see there were some really big drops. And bear with me, if you're not interested in this, of course, you can always fast forward, but I literally want to go through every single stock chart because I'm looking for opportunities, places where it seems like the moves were just way too big. So let's check this out. First of all, CRDO was the biggest mover. And yeah, it broke down below the 50-day moving average, which is this big red line. Sorry, I'm using the free version of TradingView, so I can only get um, one indicator at a time. So every now and then I am going to take a pause to see where the 200-day moving average is. So I know that's going to be kind of painful to watch here, but let's just see where the 200-day moving average is. Okay, so it's far, far away. So this is not it's a bearish breakdown, but it's not a disastrous one just yet. All right, let's set that back to the 50. And actually, I'm going to go to the next stop. Next one, VRT. This is one of my favorite AI plays. I wrote about it in my blog, drduru.com/122/blog. And oh, let me go to the chart. The irony here is that on this 50-day moving average breakdown, I got out of the stock. I was being really nervous, a nervous Nelly, didn't like the setup, so I wanted to lock in my profits. And then what I wrote about was looking at how the stock quickly recovered. I sold essentially at these lows. But the big but was on Friday, there was this bearish engulfing move. What is a bearish engulfing move? Let me zoom in. It's when during an uptrend, the stock opens up above the previous day's close. And for people who really want to get tight rules, they might do it above the intraday high, but above the open is enough, and then closes below the low, or the open of the last day. So opens above previous day's close, closes below the previous day's open. That's a bearish engulfing move at the end of an uptrend. So that was a warning. Now, because I'm very bullish on the stock, I didn't take it as a warning to short the stock. I just kept an eye out for the next move, and man, was the next move a whopper, down 30%. I took a risk. I jumped into this stock by selling a put. I think it was at the 95 strike. If I put the stock, if it's exercised or put to me, I don't mind owning VRT at 95. So we'll see how that goes. So for me, the best case scenario could be getting the stock for cheap at 95, but we'll see what happens. Now let's keep on going. VST, that's one of the most popular AI energy plays. VST had a clean break below its 50-day moving average for a whopping 28% loss. VST is also one that I lamented missing this run up. So I also sold a put option on this one. I believe it was the 125 strike. I think owning at 125 is sure worth it. It would be a close of the last post-earnings gap. If not, if I don't get the stock, then I'll take the premium. And for both VRT and VST, I sold weeklies. All right, let's keep on going. Now, one thing that caught me by surprise was CLS, Celestica. Now, I think I know Celestica is a contract manufacturer. I did not have time to see exactly what components they help manufacture for the AI supply chain, but I think this 28% loss is pretty indicative of its dependence. I did not do anything here. It's got earnings coming up, and I also would want to study this more. I was a Celestica owner a while back and took profits. I think this was a long time ago, maybe early last year, or even 2023. So it's pretty impressive to see it continuing on. HIMX, HIMX. Ironically, I just wrote about HIMX on my blog also. So go there if you want to see more details. But to me, I jumped on this as a definite opportunity. They are a fabless semiconductor company, and they just signed a deal with TSMC, which is Taiwan Semiconductor, which of course is heavily involved in the AI supply chain. It dropped 28%. I bought some shares, and I'm just going to keep nibbling away if it continues its weakness. It gained 45% on last week alone, so I'm very happy to be able to jump into this. As I wrote in my blog, when it gained 45% in one day, I was really remiss in not buying into the pullback from there. So we'll see what happens. Of course, nothing is guaranteed. And remember, everything I go through here is for educational purposes only. Please do your own homework. OKLO is an energy, I think it's a nuclear energy provider. This one I'm just watching. I don't think I'm going to ever buy this one, but it dropped 25.6%. If you're bull on this, it has not violated any major trend lines, and that's an example of just how much it's moved. And it's still even above the 20-day moving average, which is this dotted line. So it's still in the bullish mode. It's the first one of the big droppers that I've gone through that actually is still bullishly positioned for the short term. ANET, which I think is Arista. Yeah, Arista Networks. Again, you see this familiar clean break below the 50-day moving average. This also tells you that there are robots that have to be at play here because I mean, or market makers who are watching these charts because this stock opened right at the 50-day moving average. It tried to rally and then got pushed right down. So technicals mean a lot in the abstract and in reality. So Arista dropped 22%. I think I want to buy this one, but only after it reestablishes its uptrend above the 50-day moving average. I'm not as bullish on this one as others, just because I don't know enough about it to just take the plunge. All right, let's keep it moving. FabriNet, I think, FN. Yes, FabriNet. Well, this one dropped 22%, but you can see it's just been bouncing around in a big range. So I don't think there's anything due or nothing to see here just yet. Let's see, Marvel. This is a chip maker, Marvel Technology. Look at this. You see the familiar pattern? The market makers or the market, however you want to believe it, opened this stock right at the 50-day moving average and tested people's resolve, and the sellers won and took this thing well below its 50-day moving average for a bearish move. Also look that it's about to close its last post-earnings gap up. So I'm going to be watching for this one. I do like MRVL. I know a little bit about the company. I've written about it years ago. And I'm going to be watching to see what happens after it fills this post-earnings gap. If it holds, I'm going to be a buyer, even though it's below the 50-day moving average. Maybe it turns into just a short-term trade. Let's keep it moving. Broadcom, AVGO. Now, Broadcom has had some crazy moves since its big post-earnings gap up of 24%. You could see it shot up another 11%, and then it just bounced along sharply. Now here, the market makers of the market were not able to open it below the 50-day moving average, but the sellers were able to push it just barely through. So Broadcom is bearish again, but overall, I think it's bullish because it's still holding most of a good chunk of the gains from the last earnings. This is another one I'm probably not going to buy in unless it gets above, it has to clear this serious hurdle for me to really get comfortable that the bulls are back in charge for Broadcom. All right, let's keep moving. NVIDIA. Now, I wanted to start the show with NVIDIA, but it would have broken my system here of just going from the worst to the least worst. Now, the reason why I was thinking of leading here is because, man, oh man, NVIDIA has the most fascinating technical stories around. Let me put another arrow here just so I'm very clear that, NVIDIA's chart has been so full of bearish engulfing tops. I only have taken advantage of one or two of them as a bearish move. And of course, just like with Verta Networks, I think it's Verta Networks, yeah, VRT, NVIDIA printed a bearish engulfing top, and that if I was really, really, really paying close attention, I may have been tempted to go ahead and get bearish on it. But instead, I just let it slide, even though this was a double bearish top. I mean, given all the bearish engulfing tops that I've talked about for NVIDIA, this one really caught my eye that it had two in the same month. This to me is the biggest warning flag ever, not ever, but the biggest warning flag yet for a long time in NVIDIA. And this 17% drop well below the Bollinger Bands really is a big warning sign in terms of at least a sustained top. And I'll just remind you that when NVIDIA prints bearish engulfing tops, they do hold for quite some time as a top. 4 buyers recharge enough to break through and invalidate the top. This one in March lasted about 2 months. This one lasted as a top for, let's see, it was in June. It took 5 months to get over. And now, of course, we have a bearish engulfing top that NVIDIA never overcame, and now another one. So is this one going to be a top that'll last even longer than the last one? Maybe the double top signals the top for the whole year. This is a story I'm going to keep coming back to. So for now, because I did do some bullish moves on AI plays, I used NVIDIA as sort of a hedge, as sort of the leading spear of the group. And I bought a put calendar spread on that one because I don't think NVIDIA is really going to slide all that much more. So the weekly that is short this week, I expect to expire harmless and then pay for the long put for next week that expires next week. I think I did the 110 strike. Okay, let's keep it moving. Now, this one surprised me, but of course it makes sense. Floor, FLR. My goodness. This is one I actually bought as an infrastructure play. I forgot that, of course, they're providing infrastructure building for power plants. And those power plants are supposed to be providing all this power that AI is going to need. So look at this. Look, once again, they opened the stock right at the 50-day moving average, and then sellers took it down the rest of the way to let's say a 3-month low, down 15%. This looks really toppy. I'm not in a rush to add more to my position here. I'm just going to sit and wait and watch. But I think over the longer term, floor should be good. And it's ironic because I had given up on floor. Let me just show you the long-term chart. There was a time period going into the pandemic that floor was just messing up operationally over and over again. And somewhere in here, I can't remember, I just totally gave up on it. And it's made a very impressive comeback. If only I had stuck with the story. There's clearly a lot of money to be made post-pandemic, but it is what it is. Okay, let's keep it moving. Next up is TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor. This one, they opened it up below the 50-day moving average, so TSM is clearly bearish. Sellers were able to do a major fade off of the 20-day moving average. And TSM is just not a stock I've ever looked to buy, so this is just one for me to watch as part of this list. SMCI, hopefully everyone knows this, and I don't have to go over the scandal-ridden headlines and the company's attempt to recover. So because NVIDIA went down, of course, SMCI as a major supplier as a supplier for NVIDIA. I don't know the share of their revenue that NVIDIA represents, but it's down 13%. And again, it's back in a bearish position. Okay, Micron, MU. Now, MU has a very messy chart. It's just been bouncing around a lot for many months now, but I like buying it off the lows and then selling into the rallies. Micron dropped 12%, but it's right in the middle of this trading range and it's below the 50-day moving average. If it can drop one more day closer to this bottom of the trading range, I'll get interested. So I'm keeping an eye on that, but I'm looking to buy closer down to closer around here. Okay, moving on. Mpower. This is one I don't know much about, but let's just take a look at the chart. Yeah, I mean it's just an ugly chart. Last earnings was a fail, and then it gapped down again after earnings. So, this is one that wouldn't even make my buy list. Dropped 11% back to 50-day moving average support. So, you could say that it's still in some sort of recovery mode. Okay, URA, which is just the ETF for the uranium plays. Of course, nuclear power has been all the rage as a way to reinvigorate our data grid. And URA has just been kind of chopping around, for over a year now. So there's not really much to say about the uranium plays except for try to catch it at the bottom of the range and maybe sell at the top of the range. Okay, CDNS, Cadence, I believe it is. They sell design systems. I think they're software systems for chip design. I can't quite remember. This is, again, just another very choppy stock. It's just been chopping around for over a year. Not much to see or do here, even though it's below the 50-day moving average. It's not even something I would think to short. Okay, DELL, which as you know, I just remembered to add to my list. DELL, I am a holder, been a holder for a while. This drop should be the next buying opportunity, but I'm just going to be patient. In fact, I'm going to be patient enough to either wait until it gets to test this low, or gets back above into bullish position above the 50-day moving average. TER, Teradyne. I don't think I have much to say here. It's also just been chopping around, since last spring or summer. It dropped just barely below the 50-day moving average. Nothing to see or do here from my perspective. AMAT, which is Applied Materials. They are a semiconductor equipment maker. I am sort of interested, but I'm only interested because despite all the AI hype and semiconductor hype, it's just been falling since a peak last summer. So to me, Applied Materials is actually bearish, something to fade on rallies. And if you were bearish, fading on rallies was a really good move. Okay, AMD. I am a holder of AMD, and I just have resolved to just tuck it away and just wait over how many years it takes for it to regain its luster. AMD topped out in the spring of 2024, and it's been going down ever since. But I'm a big fan of AMD. AMD and I go way back, and I finally got onto the bandwagon. I think 2022, 2023 as a buyer of its stock. So, you know, this may not end up working, but I think AMD still has some life and one more comeback to go. KLAC, which I think is KLA 10 core, if I remember my semis correctly. Yep. Well, I guess they dropped the 10 core part. KLA Corporation, just like Applied Materials, it actually peaked out last summer, and it just has not been able to participate in the AI hype. But the AI panic, it did participate in, dropped 6.3%. So it'll be interesting to see what they say about AI in the upcoming earnings report. All right, ASML, that is another semiconductor equipment manufacturer out in Europe, and they dropped 6%. Again, you can see the story with the equipment makers. They've been lagging despite the AI hype. So there's nothing to buy here. And in fact, if anything, maybe they're shorts. Google, I write a lot about Google. So I'm just going to show the chart. Google is still, to me, in bullish form. It's even still above the hype that came from its headlines in quantum computing, and it is above the 50-day moving average. It's not quite at a point where I'll do a short-term trade, but I will be keeping an eye on it this week. If it goes a little lower to this bottom of the range, I'm definitely a buyer, at least for a short term. Microsoft, which interestingly enough, you could say is a stock that should benefit from cheaper AI. And sure enough, it broke down below the 50-day moving average, but people started to get that thinking and bought it off the low, and it finished above the 50-day moving average. It'll be interesting to see what Microsoft says about AI in its earnings report coming up this week. So it is definitely a no touch until those earnings come up. Now I'm going to end this. As you can see, the drops have finally petered out in this list to Think. Now, Think is actually my favorite way to play the AI boom because it is an ETF and it performed just as I would hope on a AI panic day like today. It only dropped 2.1%, and it's even still above its 50-day moving average. So this is my favorite way to play. It's what I call my sleep well at night way to play AI. It's a well-diversified ETF. It includes the NVIDIAs of the world, but it also includes some what I call stabilizer stocks, which are the ones that'll perform with much less volatility, like Google. So now I will end this discussion by showing you how I found some more semiconductor stocks. I went into Swing Trade Bot. I looked up SMH, scrolled down, and I looked up the list of stocks in SMH's holdings. And then I just looked at the price changes, and I assumed, oops, let me sort this by worst to best. And I just took the worst. I went all the way down to the 5% drop lane. Actually, you can see I did not include LRCX, which I think is Lam Research. I did not include that in my list of AI stocks as I figured 5% is right borderline in terms of an AI or AI adjacent impacted stock. But anyway, this is the way that I filled out the rest of my AI list with more semiconductors. And now remember, um, what I'm looking at is not necessarily how much AI any of these stocks really have. It's what is the market's perception of that company's dependence on the AI narrative. And the price action is a proxy for that. So I hope that was helpful. Leave a comment if there's any questions you have. Otherwise, please subscribe, share this video with others who may benefit from these technical discussions. And let me end with a view of the NASDAQ so we can see that the NASDAQ is back into bearish position on the 50-day moving average, a very rare thing for the NASDAQ to drop below its 50-day moving average again. This failure at the all-time high makes it look like the NASDAQ has printed a double top. This is another thing to be keeping an eye on. So until the next time, take care. Thanks for checking out the market breadth from drduru.com.